Bad news for Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn. Team Usyk begins to put the pressure on AJ. Will he duck and vacate a belt? Or will he take the challenge and fight Alexander Usyk? Usyk wants to know, and fast. We're going to talk about that in this here video. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also subscribe to my channel. Listen, my name is Ego. I drop the illest boxing content on all of YouTube. If you love it, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button. That does help the channel. And what it does for you is keep you informed on all things boxing. I cover all boxing, some UFC, the latest and greatest. Let you know what's going on in this beautiful sport, the sweet science, daily uploads, live streams, pre and post fight, dialogue and breakdowns. I do the watch party for the big fights. It's a good time. Smash the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a thing. You know, so much going on in boxing, you wouldn't want to miss anything. Now, link in the description. Sky Sports has an interview and quotes, and there's a lot of pressure on Anthony Joshua. As you guys know, in case you live under a rock, Anthony Joshua and his team, Eddie Hearn, they clout chased the Tyson Fury fight, only to be met with resistance as Wilder, Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, ex-WBC champion of the world, he won an arbitration, a legally binding process, forcing a third trilogy fight that was confirmed yesterday. I made a video about it. Again, this is why you guys got to subscribe for the latest and greatest. And with that arbitration reward or being awarded to Wilder, it just totally made Joshua Fury FUBAR. As a result, Joshua, since his team lied and said they were going to get the Joshua Fury fight in Saudi Arabia for Undisputed, and seeing how that's no longer the case with Wilder fighting Fury next, Team Joshua has been under pressure to fight their mandatory Alexander Usyk. The WBO ordered Usyk to get his opportunity, seeing that the Joshua Fury fight is defunct. You see the title, it says Alexander Usyk is waiting on Anthony Joshua's decision to agree to a world title fight. Now, the bad look is we've heard recent interviews from Eddie Hearn, and he suggested that they may decide to fight Luis Ortiz or Dillian White or Andy Ruiz trilogy instead of fighting Usyk, right? Says Alexander Usyk is waiting to discover if Joshua, quote, is brave enough to agree to fight for the belt championship. The deadline of May 31st delivered the WBO, who ordered Joshua to face his mandatory, has elapsed. The champion's promoter, Eddie Hearn, has says, quote, we'll either make a deal or we'll vacate the belt, which I'll get back to in this video later. We are waiting for King AJ's decision whether he is brave enough to get dethroned, Usyk's promoter Alexander Krasuk said, right? So they said they're patiently waiting to see if this is their next assignment. 2 gold medalists. It's a great fight, especially in lieu of Tyson Fury being occupied with Wilder and having unfinished business that he tried to escape and duck. Asked if he expects a deal to be struck or if Joshua might seek other options, Krasuk said, I have no idea at the moment. We are expecting his decision. So he's saying, I don't work for Team Joshua. I know my fighter Usyk is ready for action and he wants that opportunity. And they're not playing. They even threatened at one point to do legal action if not given the opportunity. He had previously told Sky Sports there are no visible obstacles to the deal not to take place. Unified champ Joshua was ordered to take on Usyk after the collapse of Wilder or Joshua Fury, which I already told you. Joshua's promoter, Eddie Hearn, previously says, it is the fight that is most likely for us. We are talking to other people as well about other fights. The aim is to be undisputed. All AJ has done is to box off mandatory fights to keep the belt. How much longer does he have to do that? You never get the freedom to do what you want in the ideal world, like to do with Canelo Alvarez has done, have 3 fights in the 6 months, but it's about defending belts. He wants to become undisputed. He doesn't want to lose the belt, but hands are always tied. Dillian White told Sky Sports, it's a dead fight. Usyk hasn't looked good. Who has he fought at heavyweight? Chaz Witherspoon, Derek Chisora. He looked terrible in those fights. He has no punching power. So Dillian White doesn't want that. He said, okay, he's got good movement, but it's not nice movement. At cruiserweight, his movement was nice. At heavyweight, his movement is nice. And I'm going to skip over this because Dillian White's opinion is null and void. It's a moot point. Who cares if, you see what the UK is doing. They're trying to ask UK fighters to downplay Usyk's opportunity. So just because Dillian White says Usyk is not a true heavyweight and all that, what does that have to do with Joshua's obligation to fight him? So you can already see it's beginning to look a little bit crazy and the pressure is rising. Dillian White, funny enough, he was the one, him and Eddie Hearn, who were complaining and bemoaning and crying about him getting a mandatory shot with the WBC title. And now he has the audacity to somebody else who actually is a mandatory, right? Remember when Dillian White was saying, oh, we've been waiting 600 days, 1,200 days, and all this stuff like that, complaining, saying Wilder was a coward and the WBC was protecting him. And now this is the same person who is trying to stop or prevent another person from getting their mandatory shot. So regardless of how Usyk has looked, if he's in line and he's the mandatory and Fury Joshua is not happening, then he's the next in line for that belt. Now, the walls are closing in, and I'm going to explain why. This is what happens in boxing, as I've long stated on my channel, when you try to play God. When you try to play God in boxing, what I mean by that is this. Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua try to play God. Everyone is acting like they love Undisputed and this is great when it was Joshua Fury. But after Joshua got whooped by Andy Ruiz, a 5-week replacement, Ruiz could have went back to his advisor, Al Heyman, on PBC and fought an undefeated Deontay Wilder at the time before he lost to Tyson Fury, who arguably cheated, right? And they could have fought for Undisputed. So that's one opportunity. However, Joshua, he was stubborn. He had a rematch clause in there. So he says, just like Wilder, he says, no, that's not good enough. I want my shot at my belt. And then he got it. And then he ended up beating Ruiz, who also pissed off his camp and, was eating bad and wasn't taking camp serious in his weight and got in over his head or whatever, right? So Joshua was afforded that opportunity to get the belts. But the same people in boxing didn't want to see that dream realized for Wilder. They said, oh, Fury beat you, move on. But everybody was all for Undisputed with Joshua and Fury. Everybody was all for Joshua exercising his rematch clause. Once again, the double standards. But beyond that, before the Ruiz situation, before he even became temporary champ, Joshua was being gunned down and stalked by Deontay Wilder and smoked out. It was Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn who were playing games, lowballing Wilder. So all of a sudden, a couple years later, after Wilder tried to smoke out Anthony Joshua, who's sitting cross-legged, Indian style right now, right? Before that was a thing, Deontay Wilder said, I want to fight Joshua. We're both undefeated. We're both knockout artists at the time, a couple years ago. And Eddie Hearn offered him $12.5 million flat fee, no pay-per-view, right? And people were like, man, that's a lowball offer. Even Wilder said it was a lowball offer. Now, fast forward to the future, they have all these deals allegedly in Saudi Arabia where both fighters are going to split $155 million, but they couldn't offer Wilder something better than $12 to $17 million, which is laughable. Fast forward to the future, all these same liars and same people are saying give Wilder $20 million step-aside money to allow for Joshua Fury. So it's ironic that when Wilder was smoking out Joshua, they couldn't come up with $20 million to save their life. They were trying to give Wilder $12.5 million, $15, $17 million. But now all of a sudden, they have $20 million allegedly for Wilder to step aside to have allowed Joshua Fury to fight. It's all a game. The same people also told Wilder that, and I got to remind y'all, because y'all must have forgot, like Roy Jones said, same people wanted Wilder to sign a 3-fight deal with DAZN, which hasn't even released their schedule currently. And it was for like 20 million, 40 million, 40 million, something like that. But now allegedly they got 20 million for Wilder to step aside. But the main point that I want to make is when Wilder was trying to get Undisputed cracking with Joshua, they were playing games. They were lowballing Wilder, playing games, saying we had to fight in the UK. We're not willing to take your 50 million offer in America with 50% of the upside of the pay-per-view. We'll split that down the middle. Joshua said his home base is the UK and he had to make the fight in the UK. Fast forward to the future, Joshua Fury was 2 British fighters, 2 guys who hail from England. They weren't even trying to put the fight in the UK. They were trying to put it in Saudi Arabia. Again, this is what happens when you try to play God. You try to play God and, control the board. And Eddie Hearn, I don't think, felt Joshua was ready for Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. So as a result, they had to find a way out and make sure that didn't happen and come into fruition. And in doing that, it's created other issues because we still don't have an Undisputed, which we could have had years ago had Joshua and Wilder fought when Wilder was hunting Joshua down, right? And then even after that, like I said, with the Ruiz situation, but yet and still, because of Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua, this never happened, right? We could have already, Joshua and Wilder could have fought 3 times by now. And now they're talking about Usyk and ducking Usyk and possibly giving up one of the belts. That's why Usyk is talking spicy, like, we're waiting on Joshua. Is he going to be brave enough to fight us? So Eddie Hearn's stable is getting completely dismantled. Canelo Alvarez has ran through so many rematch room fighters by himself, right? Caleb Smith, Billy Joe Saunders. I don't think Avni Yildirim is with them, but that's another Eddie Hearn promoted fight where Canelo beat them. In addition, Josh Warrington lost, Josh Kelly lost, James Tennyson lost, etc., etc. So the UK has taken mad L's, not including Frank Warren fighters like Daniel Dubois and Anthony Yard. So Joshua is one of the last people who has lost, but he won his last fight, Pulev fight. And it's funny because when it's mandatory somebody like Pulev, he fights him. Now they're talking about Usyk, who is at the very least a bigger fight and a better fight than a 40-year-old Pulev. Now they're talking about getting rid of one of the belts and maybe not fighting him. And again, with the collapse of Joshua Fury, there's really no reason for Joshua not to fight Usyk unless he's scared or they think he could lose by a tricky gold medalist, and now they don't want to do it. So the walls are closing in for Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua. I know Eddie Hearn is probably trying to protect his last big cash cow. Kell Brook left him. And again, a bunch of other rematch room fighters have lost. No one else has the profile with Eddie Hearn as big as Joshua. Canelo may team up with PBC to fight Caleb Plant next. So the Usyk is a dangerous fight, but it's a good fight for the fans. And just to prove how fake old media is, a couple years ago, people were clamoring for Usyk and Anthony Joshua to fight. They said, oh, this is a great fight. It's a great fight. Now you have Eddie Hearn playing his jackal games and acting like Joshua's sick and tired of fighting mandatories. And boxing is starting to play this game where you can clearly see when it's a mandatory like Jamal Charlo, you have Canelo who somehow finds a way to become franchise champion and gets out of it. But when it's a weak mandatory that no one wants to see, like Avni Yildirim, somehow that mandatory happens. Same thing with Gennady Golovkin. Hey, no guys had marks, right? When his mandatory is a good fight like Jamal Charlo, conveniently it doesn't happen. When his mandatory is someone like Dominic Wade or Camille Sesmeta, that mandatory happens, no strings attached. And now you're seeing the same game. People are taking advantage. They're like acting like Joshua is sick and tired of fighting mandatories. But when his mandatory is a 41-year-old Povetkin or whatever, Pulev, whoever, that no one wants to see him fight, those mandatories can happen. But now Usyk's team and Krasuk are putting the pressure on him, saying, hey, we're ready for his opportunity. And they're talking about they may drop it, but it's not going to go to purse bid. They're going to either fight him. So if they don't fight him, this is going to look extremely bad for Joshua. Shout out to Usyk sticking to his guns. If anything, if he's the small heavyweight, if he sucks, if he's not quality enough, then it's up to Joshua to prove that Joshua is too big, too strong for him. But I'm not going to be mad at Usyk, who was undisputed. He moved up for a reason, and now he wants to prove his worth. And you can't just rob him of the opportunity to do that if he's the mandatory. He was the super champion at cruiserweight. He was undisputed champion. He won the coveted World Boxing Super Series that you guys love so much. And when Caleb Smith won the World Boxing Super Series, you said, oh, Canelo's fighting the World Boxing Super Series champion. When Donaire and Nui were in the finals, y'all said it was like a great fight. Okay, well, Usyk, he won the World Boxing Super Series too. So give him his respect. He's now a heavyweight, whether you think he's looked good at heavyweight or not. And the WBO ordered the fight and ordered him to get his opportunity. So give Usyk his shot, point blank, period. That's a good picture. So if Eddie Hearn and Joshua play games and try to fight Dillian White too, that's going to look extremely bad. Because I don't see Joshua really fighting Luis Ortiz. Why would you fight Dillian White? You already beat him instead of fighting your mandatory. So Wilder really messed up plans for Eddie Hearn. And if they don't fight Usyk next and take that dangerous fight, but they had a 41-year-old mandatory that already lost to Klitschko that no one wanted to see Joshua fight, again, Joshua is going to look like a duck and a coward for not fighting Usyk, just like when he didn't fight Wilder. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. We working.